Uses the show Nurses Night Out since 2013. Give it up for your headliner, Greg G. Williams!
Thanks for tuning in to the second season of the Talking with Todd podcast. I'm your host, Todd Carter. Today's episode is sponsored by TJ Everhart Consulting, LLC, developing the world's best employees, one training strategy at a time. Today on the show, we have our special guest, Mr. Greg G. Williams. Greg is a comedian and also a NICU nurse, pilot, producer, and just an all-around funny man. Welcome to the show today, Greg.
Thank you for having me on. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Same to you. Absolutely. So before we get started, go ahead and tell everybody, where are you from?
I was born in Roanoke, Virginia. And I grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where I moved when I was 3. So that's what I call home.
Awesome. All right. So you've already pretty much told us what you do. So kind of introduce yourself and just tell your story, what you would like to say about yourself.
I've been a registered nurse for 25 years in neonatal ICU for the whole time. It's an area that I love. I love teaching. I love working with families, things of that nature. I did transport briefly with it, transporting kids across the nation, to higher level or lower level acute, hospitals. And then I started comedy in 2007 in Atlanta, Georgia, which started off as a hobby. Then I started making a little bit of money, and I got a true bug for it. And I created my own tour, which is called Nurses Night Out, that I've been doing for 10 years now. So I've been traveling the country, and I've done shows in Canada over the last year.
That is super awesome. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is that, how did you become a NICU nurse?
NICU nurse, going through nursing school, we got to study and work in every area of the hospital. So you're talking ER, med surg, ICU, surgery. And with NICU, once I saw the unit and walked through it, and we didn't even get to work with the babies, but I knew that was for me. Watching the nurses for those couple hours in there, I knew that was for me. And so I applied. The first job I applied to, I got straight out of nursing school, and I haven't looked back since. Particularly, at first wanted to work in just pediatrics, which pediatrics can range from birth to 21 years old. But with the premature babies, it's a different animal. It's you get to work with kids or babies, and there's an intense side to it. These kids are really critical. So you have to be on point, and you have your P's and Q's in order to make sure they stay alive. So it's a little bit of an adrenaline rush. Also, you have a tender side taking care of the babies.
Okay. All right. So explain to me how you transition into comedy.
Comedy, I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, working at a hospital there. And I used to go to all the comedy clubs around town. And I would see everybody from D.L. Hughley to Kevin Hart when he first started, everybody. And one of the comedy clubs there, it was called the Funny Farm Comedy Club. They had a comedy class that they offered on their website. And you went in with the class, you went in on 3 Mondays in a row for 3 hours each time. And you sat down with a couple comics and the owner of the club, and they taught you comedy. They didn't teach you to be funny. A lot of people get misconstrued that these places can teach you to be funny. You're either going to be funny or you're not. So they taught us how to structure a joke, how to present to a crowd, how to even grab the microphone out of the mic stand, which can be difficult for some people. And so on the fourth Monday, we had what we call a graduation. So it was all of us doing 5 minutes. And I was proud of my little 5 minutes back then. And I just caught the bug from there.
You're absolutely right. Anything that you go to do, you have to train for it. Mm-hmm. In order to be successful in it. And I think people don't understand that. Now, but this is not one of my questions, but I'll just ask, did you ever just think that you were funny anyway, though, before you decided to train for it?
I was funny with friends. Yeah, it was to where I was funny around people I was really comfortable around. So most people, when they first meet me, they think I'm very reserved or quiet or shy. Mm-hmm. But when I'm around people that I'm comfortable with, I enjoy, then I act up. So what I was known for at work was imitating people at work, especially with strong personalities or unique ones. I could do voices, mannerisms, things of that nature. So to alleviate stress through the night, I'd have people cracking up.
That's pretty cool. I did watch you. You are funny.
Thank you. Thank you.
Those P jokes, I was just like, okay. All right. That was funny, though. All right. So how did you merge the two careers together?
One of my mentors from the comedy class told me, and it sticks with me to this day, to be unique. And he was like, dude, he said, you have a lane that not many people have to bring, your stories of nursing on stage. Because with me, with comedy, I enjoy talking about my experiences and things I've been through, whether it's nursing, being a pilot, I'm a veteran, military, things of that nature. I think you can take stories you've been through and present them and make them funny. It's hard for people to steal your act.
Right. And those are the best jokes, I think, when you're talking about something that's real and that's relatable. I think you just make fun out of life that way.
Correct.
So, absolutely.
And a lot of people relate to things, whether it's the nursing or I talk about being married before and divorced and kids or whatever. People can relate to it,
All right. So educate the audience about the Nurses Night Out. So how do you tour around, and is it just all centered around other nurses, or just educate us about that?
So Nurses Night Out started in 2013 in San Jose, California. It was a chance to get in with one of the clubs there, the San Jose Improv, to where I thought, why don't I reach a lane of customers who are audience that really hasn't or don't get to come out to shows a lot. So a lot of the nurses that I work with and at the hospital there in San Jose really didn't go to comedy shows. So I would ask them, y'all been to shows? And they would go see, occasionally somebody they like, or they would see people on YouTube or Netflix, but they hadn't really been to shows. And so I thought, let me present this to a club to where I can steer in, this whole new audience. And so my very first show, I was challenged to do it on a Tuesday night, which is a rough night for a comedy club. Most people want to get out on the weekends. And they gave me a number of 150, and I brought in 151 that night. And I haven't looked back since. And so my audience I target are nurses or people in the medical field. But the show's open to anybody. And as far as nurses, I'm the only nurse on the show. There are a couple of I've had a doctor or two doctors that have done comedy, that do comedy. I've had a couple of nurses who I'll bring in every now and then to do comedy. But generally, I'm the headliner, and I'm usually the only nurse on the show.
Okay. And I see that you are very busy. You have a lot of upcoming dates. So you can just go ahead and shout out a couple dates, in cities that you'll be in soon.
Cities that I'll be in, I'll be in Chandler, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix. On January 10th, I'll be in Plano, Texas at the House of Comedy Club. On January 11th, I'll be in Atlanta at the City Winery there. In February, I will be on February 18th, I'll be
That's
in
my
Nashville.
birthday.
That's your birthday?
It is.
Yeah, I'll be at the City Winery there in Nashville. So I've struck up a deal with the city wineries to where I did one in St. Louis, the one in Atlanta earlier this year in May, and it was such a success where we sold out the one in Atlanta and St. Louis, and so they opened up the doors for others. So yeah, on February 18th. Say again.
I'm sorry, that was good too. Just how you tapped into that, just to be doing it for the winery. So yeah, I see your entrepreneur kicking in right there.
Yeah, the business side, when we first start comedy, most comics were just trying to get good and funny, right? So I've been to literally thousands of open mics and traveling and just trying to get on somebody's stage to work on your jokes, because you can practice in the mirror, you can practice in the car to your friends, but until you're in front of an audience, your act's not polished. So in these last, let's say 10, 11 years, now I focus on the business side. So creating my own product, putting myself out there, because also what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of the streaming networks, agents, they're not just going to knock on your door. You have to put something out there nowadays to where they look and say, oh, well, this guy is bringing in, this amount of money or this amount of followers or these audiences. It's almost like Tyler Perry. I've been watching, which I watched it twice now, Maxine's Baby. Sorry. Have you
haven't seen it yet.
You need to watch Maxine's Baby. That's a great documentary all around. But the things that Tyler has been through and going through is similar to what I am as well. Okay. He's created his own thing with the Medea shows, and people initially weren't coming out, and then it took a while of word of mouth for people to come out, and then he started selling out, all over the country. Well, that's kind of the trajectory I'm on right now, to where these shows are starting to sell out.
Have you ever performed in Birmingham at the Stardome?
I haven't. I want to. I've been there. I've had friends that've been there. It's one of the places I've solicited. They just haven't got back to me yet.
Okay.
So looking forward to it one day for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I read where you are a homeless advocate. So tell me what makes that why are you so passionate about homelessness, I guess?
When I was around 13, my mom had actually remarried when I was 3. And when I was around 13, my mom and my stepdad fell out, and they left us homeless for about 2 years. So my mom tried to shield us from it or the effects of it or why it happened, but it was a day where she picked me and my brother up from school, him from daycare, and she was just crying in the car. And she broke down to us that, we had to leave the house that we had been living in for 4 years. And so she didn't know where we were going to go. And eventually a friend took us in after a couple of nights. And just that feeling of not having your own house or your own bed, things of that nature, it just stuck with me even to this day. I'm 54 years old, and I'll never forget. That's probably one of my, I wouldn't say fondest, but vivid memories from my past. And so a lot of people judge homeless people, right? They get a job, they should work harder, something like that, but you don't know everybody's circumstance. So there are people that probably fit those molds, but for me, I would just rather help somebody than put them down.
Absolutely. So do you think that is your driving force as to why you have accomplished things that you have?
I have, yeah, I do. I do. It's definitely made me a stronger person to where I never wanted to depend on anybody. If I've had to over the years, but for me, I'd rather just go out and get mine if I can.
Absolutely. Okay. So how did you discover your purpose? Because it appears that you are operating your purpose.
Does it appear that I'm operating in
I
my
say
purpose?
it appears to me that you are
Oh,
your purpose. So how did you discover it? Because I say you don't find it, you discover it.
okay. Probably stems back to my childhood with the things that I've been through. And I was the skinny kid in high school or in school that got picked on. And
As tall as you are, how tall are you?
so I'm 6'4", and I'm 245 now, but in high school, I was 6'4", 169 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
Still
was super
big
skinny.
though, but I get it.
Yeah, I was super skinny. You could see all of my ribs standing out. Yeah, I was very gaunt. And so, yeah, I was the kid that was picked on and, talked about. You know how kids are. But that's why I think when you mentioned purpose, I think I have several purposes. Whether it's now as a senior nurse,
Mhm.
I love teaching younger nurses and making nurses feel welcome. There's a term that nurses eat their young. So you ask any nurse that's been a nurse for a while, and they'll know that phrase, nurses eat their young. And it's mostly either disgruntled nurses who look at young nurses as, oh, who are these people with more education? Or here's somebody who's going to take my spot and things of that nature. And I don't do that because the younger nurses, these people in their, early teens or 20s, they're going to be the next force. I'm going to be out of nursing in either way in 10 years. So I had senior nurses treat me wrong when I started. So I promised I would never do that to anybody. It's the same thing with being homeless. I was homeless, having to wear hand-me-downs. This is, when it wasn't cool to have holes in your pants, right? In
Right.
the 80s. Right. So I enjoy reaching back that way. Um, so as far as homeless, like I enjoy, that was definitely one of my main purposes or my most important because whether I'm volunteering at a soup kitchen or helping with a street project where they're, giving blankets or things of that nature or things that I just do on my own. I keep a box of blankets in my car, and especially, of course, in the wintertime, I ride around and I just hand out blankets.
That's awesome. I love
Mm.
it. So I was gonna ask, when you said
Okay.
nurses have been like, I guess not so warming, in what way have you struggled with that? Because
Um,
you're male? Is that it? Is
oh,
it
it's a
because you were a male nurse? Is the reason why? I mean, I'm just kind of curious about that.
it's a combination. Number one, I was a new nurse. The unit I worked at, my first job out of school, there were 10 new grads. I was the only male, and there
Mhm.
were 3 black people, rest white. And you could see the obvious difference in how the 7 white nurses were treated compared to the 2 female nurses compared to how I was treated. And this was in Fayetteville, North Carolina. You know, the area is racist. It's the South, right? So there's racism, but we really felt the effects, right? Because in these days, they can't come out and call us certain words or whatever, but it's the affect, it's the inferences, the way they treat you there that you feel, But I would overhear them say some things. So for me, it was a combination of things that made them how they were towards me. So
I
yeah.
laugh because I understand that.
Mhm.
I recently was navigating in a new job, and it was very hard. It's a big employer, so I won't call them out. But it was very hard to get where I wanted to go in that building. even though I came in educated
Mm-hmm.
and I had all of the requirements. So I do get it when you're in the South because I am in Alabama. So that's why I kind of laughed when you said that. I didn't want to get into it, but definitely have experienced some things in the workforce myself I could attest to. So yeah. I did read where you have like a quote. So I wanted to know, what does this mean? If you're not helping people, you are hurting them. What does that mean?
It kind of goes back to what I was mentioning about, mean nurses or homeless people or even kids, because I've been a mentor with Big Brothers Big Sisters for 20 years, on
Okay.
and off. Um, I think if you're not helping, what I mean by not helping people, or you're not helping people, you're hurting them. A lot of people will look at people going through things, or there's a lot of judgment in the world. I know I'm maybe kind of confusing things, but
It's
you'll
okay.
see people go, "Oh, look at going back to homeless people, right? All these people laying on the streets." Well, maybe they need a hand. Maybe they need somebody to guide them somewhere. You judging them or you sitting around putting somebody down is not going to help them get out of their circumstance. So
Absolutely.
I feel that if more people volunteered, more people, it doesn't have to be monetary. You could just give your time to help
Right.
somebody out. That would motivate them to change their circumstances.
Absolutely. That's one thing that I'm very passionate about, and that's the reason
Mm-hmm.
for creating this platform, is that I just wanted to have a channel where I inspire and empower others. And that's the reason why I interview entrepreneurs. And I don't necessarily ask them for their stories. It's just I kind of go ahead and just set up the questions the way I want them to. But the story always come out. And I have been so blessed that when someone does come on this platform, is that they'll share things that people don't know about them. And I feel like it's going to help somebody out there that's watching, to
Okay.
understand that no matter what you go through in life, you can still, move from that point and go to another level. So that's what this channel is about, just to encourage and inspire other people, because you never know why people do things the way that they do it. And so that's just what I want to spread. That's what I'm all about. And so that's why I created this channel.
Okay.
Because I want people to, see these stories and understand that you too can move from, it doesn't matter where you start,
Uh-huh.
but it's where you go, and it's where you, think that you can go and where you strive to go. So that's why I am on this platform doing this. I want to congratulate you, which we already kind of said it. We did mention that you are a private pilot. So congratulations on becoming that.
Thank you very much.
So where did that dream come from?
This was a very late dream. This is a true story. There's a comedian from Atlanta, which he lives in Florida now. His name is Little Duval. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
He has that song, Living Your Best Life, Living My Best
Yeah.
Life. That's the
Mm-hmm.
guy. So he was one of the OGs I used to see around Atlanta all the time in the clubs and the open mics. I'd see him weekly. We're all just trying to get good and maybe, chase fame. So he has 3 planes. So I follow him on social media. He has 3 of his own planes, small planes, to where one of them is a dual propeller plane that he flies around the country in. And for him, he makes pretty good money, but I saw on a podcast a couple of years ago, right, 4 years ago, where he said, "Yeah, why try to get a private jet and floss in front for everybody when those are super expensive to maintain?" So with his plane,
Right.
you can fit about 6 or 7 people in comfortably, and he flies private, around the nation to, wherever he needs to go. And so he, flies that plane. He has a pilot, and he has a seaplane actually. So now he has 4 planes, and it just was like, oh, let me try this. because that was something never really in me as a kid or as a young adult, and it hit me. Why don't I try it? I've always been the type, like, if I see something and it interests me and I study it a little bit, then I'll try. I'm not really afraid to try most things in life. So I did what they call a discovery flight. I went to a airport nearby here where it was a flight school, and you pay $100 and they do what they call a discovery flight. So you go up with a pilot for 30 minutes in the air to see if, number one, it's because it's different flying in a small plane compared to, a commercial.
Right.
You feel a little more secure in a commercial plane. So we went up in the air. He saw that I was comfortable with questions that I asked. And yeah, he actually let me fly a little bit on my first time up. He let me turn the dial and go in certain directions and go up and down and things of that nature. And then, of course, he landed the plane. And I started taking lessons the next week after that.
Well, it's exciting. And it's
Yeah.
awesome. I know it's a flight school near me. I don't want to do it though. I'm just saying it's one near me. I'm gonna let you have that. I'm not afraid of flying or anything, but
Okay.
yeah. All right. So so now we're gonna go to a little bit of a personal note, is what I call it.
Okay.
All right. So I did see where you own a Harley.
I do.
So it looks like you like adventure.
A little bit. Yeah, just a little bit.
All right. So I'm curious, how fast have you driven that Harley?
Harley, I've ridden that probably up to definitely over 100 miles an hour. But I've had a crotch rocket before, which those go a little faster, and I've been up to 140 on that before. So those are my younger years. I don't drive that fast anymore.
Adventure for me. I'm not that adventurous.
Yeah. No, so I have other friends that we have Harleys and we drive a little slower, and it's just to enjoy the views and all. But what I did do in 2016 is rode cross country. So I went from California to Virginia and back in like 21 days.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I saw where you slept outside a little bit too.
That was in the jokes. That was
okay.
I do that. That was in the jokes. But
Okay.
no, I stayed in hotels.
Okay.
But so what I did is I went from here in Fresno, California, first, so stopped somewhere every night. So it was Phoenix, next night El Paso, Texas, San Antonio for a couple of days. I stopped in Louisiana, and a place called Opelousas for a couple of days with a friend there. Went to Atlanta, stayed there for 3 nights. North Carolina for 3 nights, Virginia for 3 nights to see family. And then on the way back, I stopped in Knoxville, Tennessee. I spent a night in Memphis, Tennessee. I ended up which I cruised through Little Rock. But I spent the night in El Paso, Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then I was supposed to stop in Vegas for a couple days and end up back here in Fresno. But somebody cut me off in traffic in Albuquerque, leaving out. And I had a small accident. I was fine. It was more damage to the bike than anything.
So have you ever fell on it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that was one of a few times that I fell. It's a matter of when you're riding a bike, it's not a matter of when, or a matter if, but it's when you're going to fall. Yeah.
Okay. You can have the bikes too.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. All right. So what is one place that is on your wish list to go, but you haven't went yet?
Overseas, anywhere overseas. When I say overseas, I mean, I've been to Jamaica and the Bahamas, but I want to go to China. I want to go to Australia, Europe.
Right. Me too.
Everywhere.
I want to go to the Holy Land, actually. It's where I want to go.
Where at?
To the Holy Land. That's where I want to go.
Holy Land. Okay. Okay.
That's on my bucket list to do.
Yeah. I want to see it all. So one of my plans for the future is once my tour is doing well here in the States, I want to tour overseas. I want to take my tour overseas. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't, I'll whatever country will take me. But the way comedy's going now, post pandemic, people are fevered to get out, and comedy got people through the pandemic. So a lot of my friends who are on Netflix or Amazon or whatever place you could see comedy, they kind of blew up after or during the pandemic, and definitely after, to where they're traveling the nation and the world.
The pandemic, it's kind of changed how we live. And so it created a lot of jobs because people couldn't go into traditional roles. So I think that was a plus that came out of, because now people don't have to stay confined to a regular 9 to 5. They're learning how to create a job out of nothing. So I think that was one of the best things that I noticed that happened during that time. So yeah, because it's just, people just started creating, whether it was finances, whether it was making clothing or whatever. They just created a way to make money when they couldn't go into doors or when, doors were shutting. So I think that was just a good time there, but not in terms of like just thinking what the world was going to be, because everybody was afraid at first. I think I was just starting a new job and I knew it was going to be a lot of people in the building. And I was thinking like, I'm going to be coming in contact with so many people because the building is big. And so at first I was a little bit nervous to go into an environment from like, say, 900 people to like about 5,500. So yeah, but not all at one time, but just throughout the day, 5,500 people will be in that building. And so one of the other things I wanted to ask is that, what do people misunderstand about you?
I mentioned earlier about when people first meet me and they see me as quiet and reserved and I don't talk a lot. I have to warm up to people. I have to feel people out, And I feel like I save, the jokey, friendlier part of me for people that I bond with, the people who are cool.
Right, so but then you go on stage though, it's like,
it's a different animal. I know.
Okay.
The same way an actor, right? Denzel or Johnny Depp or whoever, if you see them off stage, they're different than they are in, whatever movie or, play they're in. So it's kind of something you turn on. Some people are naturally all the time, right? Kevin Hart, he's always bouncing all over the place. There are other comics that are like that. But for me, because comedy is an art and not everybody can do it, obviously. Right. To get up in front of strangers every night, in a room full of strangers, some hundreds or thousands of strangers at a time. I've done shows where there's thousands of people there. So it's an art to it. It's an art to it. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to change one of your questions that I had for you. What has been your most fulfilling time in your life? What's your favorite memory? Just like as an adult, not a child, but as an adult.
As an adult, I think it was as an adult. The bike trip across country really resonated with me, or still to this day. It was a chance, like I was supposed to have friends that were going to go with me, and for various reasons they had to drop out, and so I went on that alone, and it was mind clearing. It was just me, and when you're on a bike, you really have to focus more than when you're in a car. When you're in a car, you can kind of just lay back, listen to your music, and it's just different senses and things of that nature when you're on the bike. And I was in areas congested and not congested, riding through mountainous areas, deserts, things of that nature. And I really got to clear my mind. And I got to see the nation, at least the bottom half of the nation, from, the west to the east and back. And so, yeah, because that was a trip that almost came close to putting off, and I probably would have never done it or had the chance, especially now with being so busy. So I'm glad that I did that. Yeah, a lot of fond memories from that.
Good for you, because I know sometimes I want to do something and like your friends will say, yes, I'm going to do it. And then sometimes I won't do it only because they'll drop out. So what I'm doing in this season, as I am in self-discovery, is that I'm just going places by myself. Like if I want to go, just like you did, it's like when everybody dropped out, you pushed on and you went, and then you had a good time. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to Anita Baker concert by myself because I asked some friends. It was like, yeah, it got rebooked, but I still got my ticket by myself because I said, I just want to do what I want to do, whether I have anybody to go with or not. And so, yeah, so good for you. Do it anyway.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yep, I am. So my last question here is, what is your favorite Bible verse?
Favorite Bible verse. Let's have it pulled up because I don't want to mess it up.
I know, right?
I don't want to mess it up. It initially used to be on my cards. I used to, when we were giving out cards. Hold on, just so I can get it right. It is from Proverbs 17:22, and it's, a joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so it kind of relates to what I do, as a comedian and a nurse, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I love it. That's a great one. All right. Well, I thank you so much for being on. So tell the audience how they can follow you on social media.
Okay, they can follow me, excuse me, by going to on Instagram, Facebook, I'm doing now on TikTok or Twitter, and they can find me at the number 2 tall RN. Very simple. So at the number 2 tall RN.
All right, you guys. And you can find me on Facebook and TikTok as Tot Carter, on Instagram as IvyTot10 and Talking with Tot. And so, Mr. RN, go ahead and tell us a joke. Send us out with a joke, if you don't mind.
Out with a joke? I knew I should have known that was coming. It's tough because with stand-up, it's I don't know. It's funny with me being a male nurse. People, when they ask me am I a male nurse, I get 2 different reactions between men and women. I either get, ooh, you couldn't be my nurse. Look at those hands, big hands. Or I get women going, ooh, you couldn't be my nurse. And they're like rubbing themselves, And sometimes the men do that as well. Sometimes the men do that.
You're like, no, like, no.
No, but it happens though. So yeah, sorry about that. That's the best I can give you.
That's okay. All right, so we will tell them